Strengthening cooperation, Kazakhstan and Hungary will create a $40 million mutual financial fund. Here are the results of the visit of the Prime Minister of Hungary, Viktor Orban, to Astana. Commodity turnover amounted to $300 million. New Kazakhstan embassy opened in Vietnam. Members of Kazakh parliament visited Hanoi. Joint efforts. League of the Arab States member states agreed to establish a unified regional armed rapid reaction force. Youth Forum. Improving quality of medical services and industrial and innovative development. The head of state visited the West Kazakhstan and Aktobia regions. 30 towns in 30 days. My Kazakhstan special train traveling through country's regions.
Good evening, I'm Rahim Shakbayev, and this is Kazakhstan Weekly, where we summarize the major local and international news of the past week. Our tonight's guest is a known public figure, Ali Akhmetov. Mr. Akhmetov, I'm glad to see you.
Good evening.
The Prime Minister of Hungary, Viktor Orban, visited Astana last week. Viktor Orban admitted that he feels comfortable in Kazakhstan. The President Nursultan Nazarbayev stressed that Astana aims to strengthen trade and economic relations with Hungary. The President reminded that Hungary was the first country in the European Union to sign an agreement on strategic partnership with Kazakhstan. Viktor Orban in turn said that Budapest has noted the successful development in the bilateral relations.
At a meeting with the Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban, Kazakh President explained that the two countries have common historical roots and similar ways of development. Indeed, Hungary in Kazakh sounds like Magyarstan, and Hungarians call themselves Magyars. Kazakhs also have such a clan in addition to the descendants of Kipchaks that live in Hungary. Back in 2007, Nursultan Nazarbayev was elected an honorary leader of the Hungarian Kipchaks. Viktor Orban told about some things that still unite the two nations. One of the streets in Budapest was named Astana, where a monument to Abay Kunanbayev was erected. The current visit of the Hungarian Prime Minister has further strengthened bilateral ties. Kazakhstan and Hungary will create a joint financial fund with a total amount of $40 million. In addition, an agreement was signed between the two governments on the establishment of a joint strategic council. Exim Bank Hungary was instructed to open a line of credit in the amount of $50 million for the development of the Kazakh-Hungarian project. The parties also agreed on nuclear cooperation, provision of engineering services. The official Budapest accepted the invitation to participate in the Astana Economic Forum and the Expo 2017. Cooperation in the field of education also will be expanded. In particular, the number of Kazakh students studying in Hungary will increase up to 200 people. The law enforcement officials of the two countries signed an agreement on mutual legal assistance in criminal matters. And finally, an agreement on the launch of a direct flight between Astana and Budapest was reached. To encourage mutual travel for the citizens of both countries, Viktor Orban and Nursultan Nazarbayev agreed that Kazakhstan will cancel visas for Hungarian citizens, while Hungary will facilitate the entry of Kazakhs within the Schengen zone to the greatest extent. Many of the participants of the Kazakh-Hungarian Business Forum found it necessary to visit the country of Magyars. Memoranda of cooperation were signed between Kazmunay Gas and Hungarian Oil and Gas, also between Kaznex Invest and IPOX Chemicals, Aktu Brand Gen and OT Industries, Sun Associ and Vikov Company Limited, countries' fur trade associations, and a number of other companies in Kazakhstan and Hungary. Hungary is a very important partner for Kazakhstan in Europe. Today, we have the opportunity to exchange views in detail. I know that you have arrived in Astana with a large number of business people. Welcome to Kazakhstan, Mr. Prime Minister. Mr. President, thank you for inviting me. Let me express fraternal greetings of our people and our recognition for the development that you have achieved. Kazakhstan can be sure that it has a fraternal friend in the European Union.
So, Mr. Akhmetov, we observe strengthening of relations between two countries. What is the reason for it?
There are many reasons for this. First of all, we should underline that Hungary and Kazakhstan are economic partners. Hungary is in Europe and Kazakhstan is in Asia. On the other hand, Hungarians, for example, they consider that we have common historical heritage, and Turkic conscience in Hungary is very strong. If you take the word Hungarian or Hungary, in these two words we find out the word Huns. They come from the Huns as the Turkic peoples. That's why From this point of view, this Turkic conscience is very strong, and that's why Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban declared that he feels at home in Kazakhstan. He's right. On the other hand, for example, in modern Hungary, for example, they call themselves Magyars or Magyars, and the word Magyar, for example, it is the name of the tribe in Kazakhstan who reside in the northern Kazakhstan among the Kipchaks. And the Kipchaks are found in Hungary too, you see. And from this point of view, this relationship is very, very strong among the two nations. On the other hand, Hungary is #1 European country who signed an agreement, strategic partnership agreement with Kazakhstan. And a lot of students study in Kazakhstan. According to the mass media, we found out that about 200 Kazakh students study in Hungary. And that's why the relationship, political relationship and economic trade relationship is growing from year to year. And on the other hand, an agreement has been signed that direct flight between Budapest and Astana will be functional in the nearest future. On the other hand, visa regime will be very easy for the Kazakhs and reciprocally for the Hungarians. And this means that these two countries are committed to develop commercial, trade and cultural relations further on. That's why the Prime Minister's visit, the Hungarian Prime Minister's visit was very fruitful, and we expect that trade turnover or commodity turnover between the two countries will grow very rapidly, I would say.
A delegation of Kazakh parliamentarians headed by the Majlis chairman Kabibullah Jakupov paid an official visit to the Socialist Republic of Vietnam. Since the time Vietnam recognized Kazakhstan's independence and established diplomatic relations in 1992, political relations between the two countries have been steadily developing. The two countries cooperate closely and support each other in United Nations and various international forums. The economic and trade cooperation is developing with a positive tendency. Only last year, the trade turnover between Kazakhstan and Vietnam was about $300 million and rose by 30% compared to 2013.
In a meeting with the Vietnamese President Truong Tan Sang, the Majlis Speaker Kabibullah Jakupov conveyed a message of the President to support Kazakhstan's candidacy for the post of a non-permanent member of the UN Security Council in the years 2017-2018. They also discussed strengthening of bilateral relations in tourism, agriculture, oil and gas industry. Jakupov noted that Vietnam is Kazakhstan's important political and economic partner in Southeast Asia. He told about the new economic policy Noli Jol, the state program of the Accelerated Industrial Innovative Development, and about the measures to increase the investment attractiveness. In turn, the president of Vietnam expressed confidence that Kazakhstan will achieve great results in the future. According to him, the signing of the agreement between Vietnam and the countries of the Eurasian Economic Union will be of great significance for the state. The official visit of the Kazakh parliament coincided with Hanoi's 132nd Assembly of the Inter-Parliamentary Union. More than 1,000 delegates from 150 countries discussed the global agenda on sustainable development. Kabibullah Jakupov urged its members to join the international communication platform G-Global at the Astana Economic Forum. During the visit, the Kazakh parliamentarians also visited the Quang Ninh province, the industrial zone of breakthrough projects with participation of foreign capital. In addition, they discussed possible ways of cooperation with local authorities, including construction of ports and agriculture and tourism. The sea, beach, modern hotels, and even unexplored caves on the island of the Gulf are all of great value for investors. The parties also agreed to contribute to the Kazakh-Vietnamese business dialogue. The delegation met with the students of the Vietnam's Ho Chi Minh National Academy of Politics and Public Administration that accommodates more than 45,000 students every year. One of the oldest educational institutions in Vietnam has 5 branches across the country. In addition, the members of the parliamentary delegation participated in the opening of the new Kazakhstan embassy in Vietnam. The participants of the ceremony noted that this event is clear evidence of the interest of states in the strengthening of bilateral relations and sign of special relationships of friendship, trust, and partnership. Vietnam is set to achieve the status of an industrial economy by 2020. Given goals and objectives of the industrialization course of your country, it is closely linked to the new economic policy, Nurly Joel. The successful implementation of this plan will enable Kazakhstan not only to counter threats and crises, but also to enter top 30 most developed countries by 2050. After the official visits of our presidents, we have identified solid steps of cooperation. First of all, it is trade and investment. If we complete the process of negotiations on a free trade area between Vietnam and the EAEU, including Kazakhstan, it would open up great opportunities to increase our mutual trade turnover.
So, Mr. Akhmetov, the common question, how do you assess the level of bilateral cooperation between Kazakhstan and Vietnam?
First of all, we should underline that though Vietnam is far away from Kazakhstan, economic and political ties are very strong. And if you remember, the president of Vietnam has paid a visit to Kazakhstan earlier. And now a parliamentarian delegation of Kazakhstan, headed by the chairman of the Majlis, Habibullah Jakupov, is paying a reciprocal visit to Vietnam. Here we should underline that Vietnam and Kazakhstan ties are very strong and they support each other within the UN system. And on the other hand, during the visit of the parliamentarians of Kazakhstan, the head of the delegation underlined that requested, we should say, that Vietnam should support Kazakhstan's ambition because Kazakhstan wants to be nominated as non-permanent member to the Security Council of UN. From this point of view, I think we should get the support from the Vietnamese side. On the other hand, Vietnam itself is keenly interested in cooperation with Kazakhstan in the field of agriculture, in the field of metal importing, and so on and so forth. And from this point of view, and also oil and gas sector also. That's why common interests are very strong. From this point of view, and the visit of the parliamentarians of Kazakhstan to Vietnam was very successful, I would say. And it will give a great impulse to the relationship between the two countries.
Mm-hmm. Let's also mention that we are about to sign the free trade agreement between Vietnam
Absolutely.
and the Eurasian Economic Union.
Yes, I think at the end of the day, Vietnam, I think, is keenly interested in getting involved in the Eurasian Economic Union. And as you have just mentioned, the free trade is their interest. And free trade is also our interest, not only within Eurasian Economic Union, but outside. That's why both countries are reciprocally interested in developing close economic ties between each other.
The countries of the League of Arab States agreed to create a joint regional military force of armed rapid reaction. Such a decision was taken at the summit in Sharm el-Sheikh in connection with the growing number of conflicts in the Middle East. First of all, the civil war in Yemen raised concern. The Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi has put forward the initiative to establish the project.
During the summit, Abdel Fattah al-Sisi said the implementation of this idea will take several months. The draft resolution stresses that the joint Arab military contingent will be formed on a purely voluntary basis. The member states will not be forced to be a part of it. The contingent is expected to have some 40,000 soldiers that will be supported by military aircraft, ships, and armored personnel carriers. The Arab countries will be able to assist the states in the region instantly and in a timely manner through a joint contingent of troops. For instance, they will be able to assist Yemen, where a full-scale civil war broke out. The exacerbation of the conflict began in the summer 2014. Houthis, or as they are also called, followers of the Ansar Allah movement, named after their former head Hussein al-Houthi, who was killed by the Yemeni army in 2004. They profess the Zaidi madhab, live in the north of Yemen and account for about a third of the population. 11 years ago, the self-proclaimed Imam Hussein al-Houthi led an anti-government revolution accusing the government of Yemen in the discrimination of the Zaidi population. Houthis demand the provision of greater autonomy of the northern province of Saada, but their opponents believe that they are trying to revive the Zaidi imamate, which existed on the territory of Yemen until 1962. In 2011, Houthis significantly expanded their influence. Economic decline and the rising fuel prices led to the massive dissatisfaction with the government and contributed to the Houthis' success. By the end of January, the rebels seized more than a third of the country, including the capital, Sana'a. The Yemeni president, Abd Rabbu Mansour Hadi, fled abroad. On March 26, the international coalition started a military operation, Decisive Storm, in Yemen. The coalition, which has been traditionally represented by Persian Gulf countries like Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Bahrain, the United Arab Emirates, and Qatar, was officially joined by Egypt, Jordan, and Sudan. Shiite Iran and Sunni Saudi Arabia are main rivals in the struggle for influence in the countries of the Arabian Peninsula and the Persian Gulf. We understand that it is a difficult time for the Arabs. There is no doubt we must take appropriate steps to confront them. Otherwise, loss of control and chaos which happened to Yemen may appear somewhere else. We tried all means to urge the Yemeni Houthis for peace and to return power to the legitimate government. Therefore, we believe that we need an international mobile military force.
So, Mr. Akhmetov, in your opinion, how timely is the decision to create a unified army of Arab countries, and what is the changes to oppose the Islamic State?
To create this kind of military force has very deep roots. First of all, we should say that Islamic State, the so-called Islamic State, is getting stem and roots in very many countries, including Libya, Iraq, and Syria. Now it's getting very dangerous. And on the other hand, if you analyze the mass media of the world, you can come across such an opinion that this military force and this invasion into Yemen, for example, from the Arab countries' side, is a proxy war against Iran. And I think it is justified because Iranians are Shiites, and Saudi Arabia and very many other Arab countries, they keep Sunni Wahhab. And from this point of view, at the initiative of the president of Egypt, this military force of rapid reaction has been created. But at the same time, the president of Egypt has underlined that he or other countries, other United Arab countries, are not forcing, for example, other Arab countries to join them, because it requires to create a big army, 40,000 soldiers, supported by tanks and by planes and ships and so on and so forth. And from this point of view, I think Saudi Arabia is very concerned that this ISIS will penetrate into Saudi Arabia and, for example, Gulf countries. That's why all of them are very cautious. And that's why this coalition has been set up, and airstrikes have begun, and even ground troops might come into Yemen. On the other hand, because of the this situation, the incumbent president of Yemen has fled to Saudi Arabia, you see, and he requested help from that side, for example. And on the other hand, this war is targeted to Shiites in Iraq, in Libya, in Syria, and in very many other areas. And that's why this force has been created purposely, because all the Arabic countries are very, very concerned that ISIS or the so-called Islamic State will penetrate to that area. And we should be also cautious, because through Tajikistan, these kind of elements can penetrate to the Central Asian countries.
The head of state continued his working visit in the regions with this week and visited the West Kazakhstan and Aktobe region. Besides traditional visit to industrial enterprises, the president took part in the Republican Forum, Youth is for Strong Kazakhstan. He also opened a new regional hospital in Aktobe. Our next story has all the details.
The Uralsk Forum brought together more than 2,000 young residents in the region. The representatives of the Mangistau and Atira regions joined them during the online conference. The youth in Kazakhstan has been always prioritized. During 4 years, the budget for education increased by 2 times, science by 2.5 times, and healthcare by 1.5 times. More than 35,000 grants for the free university education annually issued across the country. The government programs with Diploma to the Village, Zhasil, affordable housing and Bolashak have been working in Kazakhstan for many years. Young, talented and ambitious Kazakhstanis always receive support for the development and self-actualization, Nursultan Nazarbayev noted. At the same time, he also mentioned global challenges that the country and youth in particular face today. In addition, during his working trip to the West Kazakhstan region, the president has visited several large companies. 34 enterprises worth 260 billion tenge have been modernized over the past few years. One of them is the Uralsk transformer plant as a result of the program Business Roadmap 2020. 150 people have already got jobs. Around 300 more factory workers will be employed after reaching the project capacity of 10,000 transformers. The decision to build this enterprise in Uralsk was taken precisely with the future plans for export. Uralsk plant Zenit has been founded in 1941. Not so long ago, the plant started to build ships, and at the moment, the plant is finishing its 21st ship. In Aktobe, Nursultan Nazarbayev met with the medics. Local experts have learned to perform complex surgeries on kidney transplantation and have seriously advanced in the vascular surgery. All this was achieved thanks to the opening of a new regional hospital equipped with the most advanced medical equipment. The president continued his work and visit to the Aktobe region by visiting the city shopping center mall. The new complex, which has been commissioned a few days ago, has an unusual triangular shape with an area of 8,000 square meters. Natural minerals, wood, and glass were used for the external and internal decorations. The complex has a fully controlled indoor single combined HVAC climate control system for convenience. The president also reviewed the work of the transportation and logistics company Aktobe Center and met with the personnel of the Aktobe rail plant, the first company to produce rails ranging from 25 to 120 meters. The management of the plant is planning to produce 200,000 tons of rails and 230,000 tons of rolled products per year. After reaching its full production capacity, the company will be able to cover the demand of the domestic market and to export to foreign markets, as Russian, Uzbek and Turkmen companies have already shown their interest. We have successfully completed the first 5 years of industrialization. Within the program, we built 700 companies, 60,000 new jobs were created. In total, $200 billion of foreign direct investments was invested in the country. Due to the joint efforts, Kazakhstan is among the 50 most developed countries in the world, and now we need to make it to the top 30 countries.
So, Mr. Akhmetov, Western Kazakhstan is the largest oil and gas producing region in Kazakhstan. So, in your opinion, how are these areas of Kazakhstan developing today?
The western areas of Kazakhstan, including Atrau area, Mangistau area, and Aktobe area, they are very industrial areas because Mangistau and Atrau, both Aktobe region, deeply involved, for example, in oil producing, because these parts of Kazakhstan, these regions of Kazakhstan produce a lot of oil and gas. On the other hand, these areas are developing very, very rapidly. Why I'm underlining this? Because according to the second industrial program, which has already begun, 5-year plan, a lot of industrial projects are being implemented in these areas. And very many new jobs are being created. And during his visit to the western area, our president visited not only the industrial sectors, but also met with the people, with the youth, and he participated, for example, also medical facilities in Aktobe, and a forum of the youth, because this year is a very special year for Kazakhstan, because our state is marking the 20th anniversary of the Assembly of Kazakh Assembly.
People's Assembly of Kazakhstan.
Assembly of Kazakhstan, People's Assembly of Kazakhstan on the one hand, and 70th anniversary of the Second World War, and also 20th anniversary of our Constitution. And all these items are very, very important. And that's why wherever our president visits, for example, these issues are marked very openly. And I think it is justified because our state is marking these dates. That's why the visits of our president gives a great incentive for the further development of these regions of Kazakhstan. But we should underline that all the regions of Kazakhstan are developing very rapidly on a, I would say, equal basis. Not only western areas, northern areas, southern areas, eastern areas, all parts of Kazakhstan are developing very, very rapidly. And I think our target is to be one of the 30 most developed countries in the world. And in this area, for example, we see that our preparation is very strong. And it is supported by all the people, not only by the elder generation, but also by the younger generation. And these meetings show and prove that we are marching on to our destination.
In late March, a special train called Menem Kazakhstanim set off from the Astana train station. This Republican campaign is dedicated to important events, namely the year of the People's Assembly of Kazakhstan, the 17th anniversary of the victory in World War II, and the 20th anniversary of the Constitution. The train will visit 30 towns during the month.
Different public figures such as members of the Kazakh parliament, famous figures in culture and sport, heads of ethno-cultural unions, scientists, representatives of various ministries, experts from the Damu Fund and the National Chamber of Entrepreneurs, lawyers, bank tellers, social sphere employees, and metropolitan doctors all took the train. During the trip, they paid particular attention to the vulnerable groups like the World War II veterans and meet the residents of the most remote areas. Physicians treat patients and provide medical consultations. My Kazakhstan train has already traveled to the North Kazakhstan, Akmola and Kostana regions. The train stopped at the Aksai railway station in the West Kazakhstan region. Residents were informed on the measures of the state's support. They have been consulted on pensions and social benefit payments. In addition, the West Kazakhstan region residents were able to receive legal advice on various issues. There also was a concert performed by country's famous artists. The train's itinerary can be easily identified by the inquiries that were received by the members of the Board of Public Consent. The board consists of the campaign participants in the framework of the anniversary of the People's Assembly of Kazakhstan. For example, residents of the city of Kundegash of the Mughal district in the Aktobe region were primarily interested in socially important issues such as road repairs. This village does not have any issues with the heating, lighting, or water. People are employed and satisfied with the conditions created at schools and hospitals. The locals are full of optimism and pride of the ongoing changes, which have been largely achieved through peace and harmony in the country. World War II veterans received gifts from the assembly as part of the campaign 20 Good Deeds. According to organizers, the campaign will help strengthen the inter-ethnic harmony and instill patriotism in the country. A specific provision of practical assistance to residents of stations and sidings will have a positive social effect. Almost 130 people took the special train. They are cultural figures, deputies who will be visiting towns. They will be holding meetings. Artists will give concerts in the regions. There are also representatives of Atamakan, financial institutions, and government officials. They will provide some practical help in addressing the pressing issues that the residents of our towns are concerned about. I hope our train provides real help on behalf of the People's Assembly of Kazakhstan to the Kazakh people, wherever it travels to, solving such issues as business and agricultural lending, on social assistance, pension, and social benefits payment.
So, Mr. Akhmetov, how efficient do you think this program can be in providing help to the villagers in terms of practical solutions of their pressing issues?
I think this train is very important because a lot of specialists are involved in this area. Doctors, for example, artists, and legal state civil service people who will help concrete help to the population, because as you have just mentioned that this train is visiting 30 towns of Kazakhstan, including all the regions of Kazakhstan. And as you know, now Kazakhstan's railway is very, very developed. And not only through the old routes, but new routes have been created, as you remember. The president opened new routes within the state. That's why when this train comes to any city or to any town, population can get free service. For example, medical service, legal service, or they can listen to concerts, because figures of culture are also included. Scientists, deputies of the parliament, they will get any answer to their any question. You see, that's why the importance of this train is very, very paramount importance. And I hope, as you have just mentioned, that this train is made up with the purpose to mark the 20th anniversary of People's Assembly of Kazakhstan, and also the 20th anniversary of our Constitution, and the 70th anniversary of the Second World War. And all these themes are very important. And the delegation who is traveling within this train will cover all those areas, you see. And they will help. And some, for example, in remote cities, for example, X-ray or medical service, doctors will give right consultation, and to put right exact diagnosis, for example, they would get a lot of help, That's why I think it's very important.
Thank you very much, Mr. Akhmetov, for the great discussion. Hope to see you next week in our program again.
Thank you.
Finally, here is a brief preview of the events of the coming week. On Wednesday, April 8th, the 196th session of the UNESCO Executive Board kicks off in Paris. And on Tuesday, Iran will present its first peaceful nuclear energy program. We will discuss this and other important events in our next program. Thank you for watching, best of luck and goodbye.